What's up, losers? Losers. It's Emma George. Hi, this is the Strictly Unrelated Podcast. I am joined by my co-host, my brother from another mother, the wise, the so sickening white. Brian fucking Kelly. What do you mean I'm so white? Why am I white?
My brother from another mother. Did any sour cream drip out of your pores when you said that?
I know, that's why I said it. Isn't it just so cringe? I love doing that. It makes me really happy.
But it's not like it's not cool Zoomer cringe. It's just cringe.
I know, that's what's so great about it. Oh, I want to make people feel like it's Michael Scott. Just I
don't know about you sometimes.
I don't know about you. What's up? What's going on, Brian? How you doing over there?
So we had an entire episode 6 already recorded. But then we stumbled across two problems. One, it turned out that for about 38 minutes, Emma went on a completely unhinged racist rant without me ever interrupting her once. And I responded to her entirely in Spanish without me realizing it. So there were all kinds of problems. It was all kinds of problems.
Yeah, and, that's exactly what happened.
And then Emma was doing her standard ASMR streams that she doesn't think anybody knows about, where she whispers into the microphone, and somehow that got mixed into the recording. It was a whole mess. Basically, the recording was just shit, and we decided that we're just gonna go ahead and re-record episode 6, mainly for the racist rant. But
I kind of like the ASMR chats. I don't like it when they talk. I like it when they're hitting going with their nails on the mic or whatever.
I'm not gonna judge because I don't have the ASMRs. Like, there's nothing. That's never had an effect on me. But I had the hardest time not laughing because of the amount of people who are just like,
there's way a ridiculous
fart in my microphone, baby. It's like, okay.
My favorite. Jesus Christ!
Rub your microphone on your armpits, baby.
Gross.
You think I'm lying? That's some primo OnlyFans content right there.
It really is. My favorite live though on TikTok right now is when people are like playing like a weird version of mahjong, where there's like two sides and like matching tiles for each. It's hard to explain, but like if you watch it, it's really easy to get.
A lot of TikTok is hard to explain.
Yeah, but it's just like, two people playing a game. That's it. And it's like so zen, and I just zone out when I'm watching it. There's a lot of really good stuff like that on TikTok Live now. I hated TikTok Live at first. I've come to like it.
I just don't like TikTok because I don't think the Chinese government needs to know what I'm doing.
I don't really care what the Chinese government knows what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything interesting, so it's like, go ahead. Like, I don't give a shit. But either way, if anybody's upset about me insulting China, Tiananmen Square. Okay, no. Jesus Christ. Did you have to say it that many times?
Yeah, because now
I'm not saying I approve of China in general. No,
listen, you misunderstand me. I say that because anybody that's actually upset about me poking fun at China, they just got disconnected from the internet. So, and the only people who are going to get mad at that are people that are Chinese nationalists, and just like nationalism in any country, it's hilariously lame.
No shit. Like, when did we get on the topic of just China as a government? We were just sitting here talking about stupid shit. Like,
we were talking about TikTok.
ASMR.
It's basically the Chinese government.
Whatever. And
that's not a conspiracy theory either. That's basically been proven.
They voted. There's a reason why they voted to ban TikTok and shit. It's because they want money. It has nothing to do with the good of the people. But anyway.
Speaking of which, here's a great topic to open things up. Talking about banning shit.
Yeah.
Did you know that Pornhub is going to be banned across several states as of July?
Really? Wait, I haven't heard that. Are you serious?
So right now, yes. So right now, Pornhub, I believe, is banned in Texas. So in Texas, you actually can't browse Pornhub. So the reason you can't browse
I did hear about this.
Pornhub,
okay.
It needs a little context. It's not complete. Some people think it's like a lie. Some people think it's fake. But here's the deal. So in Texas, you can't view Pornhub because Pornhub does not have any type of real effective age verification. So for background, there was a giant fucking apocalypse amongst Pornhub and its related websites some years ago because it was basically discovered that there were large amounts of what is technically illegal material on Pornhub.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because there were models that were not 18 that were posting content. Not that there was, I'm sure there were some dirty bastards posting shit that they shouldn't have been posting, but there were also models that were not verified who had content posted, and they were even just 17, which obviously is still illegal in a lot of states. Some states, consent is like 16, weirdly
That's
enough,
gross.
and some fucking 18.
18 is still gross. I hate to tell you. Anybody who's into it's barely 18,
yeah.
It's gross. It's weird.
I mean, I'm at the age where 25 is young to me, so I mean,
well, it's like exactly.
I don't know.
I'm not here to kink shame anyone, but I'm also saying being into 18-year-olds is really weird. I mean, if you're 23 or 24, no, I get it. Like, you're the same fucking age. But if you're like in your 30s, like I'm 35, if you can't look at an 18-year-old and see a child, it's major ick. Major ick.
Yeah. So basically, there's been a lot of hubbub about how these sites handle age verification, because obviously it's a big problem,
Right.
Not just for the fucking creeps that make that content, but there actually are people that make it willingly themselves because they know that obviously, there's, it's like, listen, women aren't stupid. They know guys want their attention. And listen, there's plenty of women making millions and millions of dollars on fucking OnlyFans. Not all of them, but plenty of them. And it's like, do you think they just figured that out at 18? Of course they don't.
Right.
Exactly. It's like, they know. There's ones that figure it out.
The kids younger than that know. Like, are you kidding me? The shit that, like, people see, like, even just, like, as, like, the shit you can post, you're trying to tell me that you don't think an 11-year-old has seen people naked and seen people's heads getting cut off? You're sadly mistaken. We live in a new era.
And that's part of the conversation, too, because it's a lot more in-depth of a conversation than I'm making it out to be, because I'm not as well versed on it as it shockingly seems like I am. But it was something I was reading about, and I bring this up because, one, I saw it on Reddit, and two, we are going to do our favorite little shtick a little bit later, where we talk about some good Reddit posts, some cheap content farming. So, but it's interesting because, again, there's a lot of stage, because like you said, you can go online and you can legitimately just find beheading videos and fucking crazy, horrific shit that you would just sit there and say, why are people allowed to see this, and why is this just so simply available? And, how many times have you gone to a website that said, are you 18 or older, and completely lied to it? Basically everybody has. It's like, when you were a kid, what would you say? No? It's like, who's gonna know? Well,
they're just very, kids are kids. And if you don't understand, they're going to get into that shit. You're going to find it. Then
kids are stupid. Children. Yeah, kids are stupid.
They're also clever sometimes, man. I'm just going to be honest.
They're equal. They're different type. They're different. They're a different type of stupid and a different type of smart, because they're uninhabited. They're creative. Uninhabited. Jesus, uninhibited, and
they're unintentionally creative.
Well, yeah, because again, they're uninhibited. They don't have experience. They don't have. They don't have that kind of knowledge to stop and be like, do I really... Like, perfect example. I've seen a video, and I'm not even going to say the name of it, because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to put it on you to even have it in your mind, because it's one of the most horrific videos I've ever seen in my life. And there's no violence, there's no nudity, there's no gore. It's literally just what happens in the context. It's one of the most haunting videos I've ever seen in my life. Somebody dies, but you don't see it. You hear the reaction of their spouse. And
oh my God.
It's an awful video. It's an awful video. But again, it's not something that you would see coming, because it's not gory. Again, there's no tits, there's no dicks, there's nothing that like tips you off. It's legitimately, I won't even say the full context just to keep you away from it, because it was one of those, like, it haunted me for a couple of days. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ,
There's a video I've seen that's like that, where I wish I'd never fucking heard it, never seen it, because it was more that I heard it. And it was
and this one's the same.
It was a cruelty to animals,
Yeah, this one, I will say it involves a human dying. It's not an animal video, but the animal videos are even worse. But it comes back to the same thing. How do you regulate that, and how do you stop people from seeing that content? But the Pornhub thing, and that's the thing, is that you really can't. And at the end of the day,
which is why the fucking censoring is absolutely fucking stupid. Like, People still don't understand what like prohibition taught us. It's really frustrating to watch. Like, do you really? Okay, all you're doing is creating of what is it? Quid pro quo in the fucking black market. You're making people have another ability to sell something illegal, and people will find it. Like,
sure. I mean, you're going to create a black market whenever you do something like that. Yeah, obviously, prohibition was a great example of that. It created an entire industry. It gave the mob power. It was.
Yep.
But
which is, it's like nobody's learned anything from that. Like, every time you like ban something, maybe it'll stop kids. I doubt it. There's still other ways to find porn on the internet besides Pornhub. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
How
sure.
much porn's on the internet? That's like, it's like they literally put a Band-Aid on a fucking ship that's being like.
But again,
taken,
the crux of it, the crux of it is the age, and that's the crux of a lot of these laws in a lot of states. Because as of right now, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Texas, Utah, and Virginia have either agreed or have already passed age restriction laws, which, again, is one small step. But one, how do you enforce it? Two, do you, part of that enforcement is, what do you do? Do you start, like, fucking, what are you, arresting teenagers? Like, what do you... Because here's the thing. I think what it's focusing on is not just the fact of like the age of people accessing it, but I think there's a big growing concern of porn consumption.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's reaching the mainstream. It is kind of interesting that's starting to reach the mainstream of like the sheer amount of pornography that people, consume.
Right.
It wouldn't be uncommon for someone to be like, well, I like masturbated last week. It's like nowadays, it's like. There's people that it's just literally multiple times a day.
Right.
And that has serious health implications.
What, and how so? Health implications?
Yeah. So some of the health implications, obviously, starting with just stuff that you could think of, is if you're surrounding yourself with that much pornography, you're getting all kinds of, mental little tics and damage over time, because you're getting a deranged view of relationships and physical activity, and like the amount of and they've done studies on this, and you can see some mixed results. I don't think the science is very sound just yet, but again, it's also because it's relatively new. But the amount of porn being consumed is just astronomical. It's, if you ever look into numbers, I mean, all you have to do is look at the unique visitor site numbers for sites, the popular ones like Pornhub, or some of the other ones like X videos or RedTube or whatever tube that people use, and Pornhub being the one everybody tends to know. But it's
anyway.
when you look at those, like I said, it's just interesting. It's interesting to me because, again, it's gone up so much, and we sit here and joke as people who have used the internet for how long, our whole lives. We grew up with it being born.
Yeah.
And the sheer amount of, everybody knows that the internet is 48% cat videos, 48% dicks and tits, and then like 4% political propaganda, I guess. and that's the whole internet,
Basically. Anyway.
But just interesting.
Well,
that's all.
It is interesting. I mean, that's the thing. It's like they're not really stopping it. It's not like people should be worried just because they can't get on Pornhub. It's like, ooh, one website out of how many others that are like maybe hundreds, infinite?
Yeah, it's a losing battle. It's one, you know what it is? It's one of those moral victories.
It's the war on drugs, dude. It's the war on drugs.
It's just a moral victory. They can stand up there and say, we're trying to save our children from porn. And you know what? Maybe
the children.
Maybe I'm going to be protect the children. Maybe I'm going to be a bad parent, but if I ever had kids and once they reached internet age, I guarantee you the first thing I'm doing is I am locking access to everything except what I say they can go to. Yeah. And that's it. They're going to be able to go to YouTube Kids, maybe like their websites for school, and that's it. I'm not going to let them go anywhere else because I know what's out there. And if that makes me,
and that's the thing that a lot of parents don't understand how to do is regulating their children on the internet.
It's just like TV. You can block channels, you can block websites. There's all kinds of software that you can use to limit your kids' activities. And ultimately, as the parent, it is your responsibility to, one, know what they're doing, and two, regulate
100%.
what they're doing until they reach an age where they are not where they are not children anymore and they are responsible for themselves. But
yeah,
whatever.
Absolutely. I think that the age, we could talk forever about the age and debate about the age that they should be able to do that, but I think it depends on the kid.
I think we agree.
I think it would depend on the kid though. For me too, like it's like if I have multiple kids, like obviously we're gonna do the same age because if it's not fair if we do it different. But like I think, you depend. Like some kids are not the same as other 12-year-olds. Like some kids are 16 and not the same as other 16-year-olds.
Really depends. I mean, sure, they mature differently, and some kids are able to handle, some mature topics as soon as they're, fucking 13, 14 years old. Some of them, maybe when they're 32 years old. So.
Exactly.
Maybe 62.
Anyway.
I mean.
Right.
And that's the parent, and that's the parent too, right? You gotta fucking know your kids.
I'm hoping one day I'll ever actually be a parent. That would be so nice. I don't know if I'm gonna get to just the way that I'm 35 years old, and it's
your
like
biological clock is ticking, Missy.
I'm already fucking decrepit,
Dusty old bag of
my
vag.
eggs are dying. They're dying.
What? Of course, because I have no originality, the immediate thing I think of is Family Guy, and a fucking scene where like, they're making fun of like some late age, quote unquote late age woman, going on a date with like a sketchy guy, and she's like, "Me and my 3 eggs are having the best time." It's like, Jesus.
That's so fucking mean. Fuck.
It really, I mean, let's face it, some of the best humor is really mean.
It really is. But I mean,
case in point, my nephew is at about 1.5 years now, and he's already reached the point where he loves watching my brother get hurt.
Really?
He thinks it's hilarious. He's got a little toy set of like
psychopath.
golf clubs that are like little plastic clubs, little toy clubs.
Yeah.
And of course, he thinks they're like swords or whatnot. So he's kind of like, he just learned how to walk. So he's waddling around and he's having the time of his life now that he can, do stuff on his own in terms of movement. And he, and he's hanging out I was hanging out with my brother last night. And of course, he's swinging the thing, and he hits him in the shin. And of course, my brother plays it up. And he goes, "Ow! What are you doing?" And he goes,
"Oh my god!"
He thinks it's a riot.
That's so common. I think kids are so fucking funny for that. That's why I love kids.
Oh, he was laughing his tits off.
Of course he was.
To
be fair, it is hilarious.
The same thing.
To be fair, it is fucking funny.
Oh yeah, and it's like, listen. There's a reason the Three Stooges were as popular as they were.
Watching physical comedy,
pretty
man.
Funny.
That's what I've always said when I was working on one of my films when I was a senior in high school. And I was basically this is my thesis film. There was supposed to be a gag where somebody was supposed to have fake blood. At the last second, my art director did not have fake blood and did not have the means to make it quickly. So I was just like, you know what? Always in your time of doubt, just go straight to physical humor. It always works, and that's what I did, and it worked. So I mean, I learned from the Three Stooges. I watched that growing up with my mom. It's just classic. You can't go wrong with physical comedy. At least he's learning. He's gonna be a comedian.
And I mean, he's obviously so little. He's probably just enjoying the noises and the whole,
he's a baby. He's
it's not like he's actually it's not like he actually knows, but it's just funny because of the noise and the instant reaction and the
kids.
That's
a bunch of kids do that.
The little noise of the plastic going clink when it hits you, and
God, I want to make babies.
Hilarious.
See, this is why I'm not dating right now. I just went on a terrible date. Well, it wasn't.
Yes.
It wasn't terrible.
Let's hear about this guy that dried you out. Go for it.
I will fucking.
By the way, I'm totally putting that voice clip of you just saying, "God, I want babies." I'm gonna put that in Discord somewhere.
Please don't. You really are. I know you're gonna do it.
Kids are great. They really are, and it's kind of they're just drunk little people.
They are.
And they're a pain in the ass, and they're a lot to take care of, but it's like, you know what? I would love to be a dad, too. It's one of those things that if I get an opportunity, that's going to be fun. But I think people, that right there, and I'm going to stop because that could be a 40-minute conversation. We got to talk about the child-free subreddit at some point, because if we're going to talk about Reddit, or just the internet in general,
important.
That is a fucking bubble to talk about. There's some big fucking weirdos out there. But anyways, the date. I know you told me a little bit about this. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I've had a shit week. I kind of have just blurred through it. You might have told me a little bit, but please refresh. Please refresh.
Oh my god! So I was talking to this guy for like a few days, and he asked me to go to a drive-in, go see a movie with him at the drive-in, which I haven't done since I was a little kid. So that was cool.
Since the 40s.
Yeah, exactly. It was cute. It was because he and I were both in a film. I'll just say that. But it was like
we're both in a what?
We're both into film.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear the film part of yours. Like you were both into what?
We're both into film. But it was like I don't even want to go too into it on here because I don't. I might have seen my podcast. I don't know. He probably isn't interested now. He unmatched me after the date, which I was grateful for.
He realized it didn't go well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that means it didn't go well for him either, or if it was just he was already because he was texting during the movie. That was the thing.
Ugh.
I know. I was like, I didn't pull my phone. I wasn't on my phone at all while I was there. When I was like, okay, I'm sending a text to my friend. I was letting him know I'm being completely polite, and he didn't give me the same courtesy. I'm pretty sure he. This is me. Maybe it's just me being paranoid, but I'm pretty sure he was talking about me. Whoever he was talking to, he was like, "This date is not good."
Sorry, don't mind me, real quick.
What?
Big ass thunderbolt on my end of things. So,
are you having a thunderstorm?
Yeah. So
you lucky bitch.
I'll just jump in. Well, we had a 97-degree day that peaked at 100.
Oh, you poor baby. It's about to get 120 where I am. It's already 110 today. 111.
Listen, you bitch. I'm just giving context. That's why
I don't
it's
care.
Gonna be thunderstorm.
I'm having it worse than you. I'm better.
Just because
I one up you.
Listen, just because that guy shriveled up like a stack of dimes around you and you couldn't get any doesn't mean you get to take it out on me.
You
all right?
bitch, I will fucking. I swear to God.
Go ahead.
I'm about to get on a plane and fly over there and show you what's what.
What are you gonna do?
Get on a plane.
Listen, I would say don't threaten me with a good time. I would say don't threaten me with a good time, but it doesn't sound like a good time because you would be a hassle to deal with.
Okay, well, you know what? You're going to pick me up anyway. Or I'm going to call Michael's mom.
Where? Oh, Mama, where? No, but if by some means, obviously you won't hear me disconnect from my phone since we're talking over the phone in this lovely little jury rig setup we got going on. Mm-hmm. But I will jump in and alert you if my computer shuts off suddenly. But anyways, yeah. So he unmatched you. It wasn't going so great. So he was texting on his phone. Was there any like point where he was just like pulling away or like what else happened?
No, I don't know what happened. Like I don't know. It's like things got easier toward the back half of it because it was just like at first it was so awkward. Like we've been talking nonstop in our texts, and then we got in person, and it was like we had a hard time talking. It was really weird. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I was nervous and not nervous to impress him. I just haven't gone on a date in a long time, and I just also because he was paying for it, and I felt bad because like that's a problem. That stands to trauma. I swear to God, trauma.
What's trauma? Oh my God.
Trauma. Oh my God. No,
wait till I tell Twitter they're gonna love me. I have trauma.
So like we got some food at a restaurant that I didn't particularly like, to be honest. It was nice. It was supposed to be a Japanese restaurant. It was like literally like the parts of the menu I never eat, but that was it. That was all they had, which was fine. Mm-hmm. He still paid for the meal, and that was whatever. And he wasn't like rude or anything except for the texting during the movie. It was just like I could tell immediately like he had pulled away from me a little bit. I don't know.
Something you just weren't connecting.
Yeah, something was happening, but we went and got gelato after that, and it started getting a little easier. And then we went to the movie, which was Inside Out 2, which was okay. It wasn't. That's the problem with Pixar movies. Is like that's one thing
that might be a rough first date.
What?
That might be a rough movie for a first date, though, because I'd imagine it's probably similarly emotional to the first one.
It is a little emotional. I got teary-eyed a couple of times, but not like I wasn't crying like I was in the first movie. Yeah. That was a lot. This one was great because it was talking about anxiety and teaching about that. It was great. It wasn't like a horrible movie, but also I feel like it's pretty much like most of the Pixar movie sequels. It's just it doesn't quite capture the magic. But otherwise, yeah. And then he just took me home, And we said goodbye, gave each other a hug, and like left. And I was like, yeah, we hugged each other goodbye, and that was like a mutual thing. We both knew. But my other issue was like, I don't want to judge or whatever.
That's
like,
good though. At least it was a mutual thing.
Well, it was the way he looked too, because he showed up, and first of all, he's balding. I don't mean to be mean, but like he was like balding, and he has this big beard, but it's not trimmed, or it's the most unkempt beard I've seen in a long time.
Everywhere.
It was super long in certain places and short in others. It looked like he had been growing it like on a desert island for like
he wasn't taking care of it.
Yeah, and he was wearing like not a Hawaiian shirt specifically, but basically that with shorts and I don't know. It didn't seem like I was there looking nice as I said I could. Like I did my hair and all that, and I don't know. It felt like there was low effort from him. My friend Nick pointed out later that he thinks that he might have been a sugar daddy because this guy very not accidentally dropped like the way he's like worth like a certain amount of money. Like he was bragging about his wealth, and I was like, that's unclassy, but okay.
Yeah, it's like good for you.
Yeah, good for you. It was just like I could tell though because I'm a girl though, and he was looking. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be some kind of. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
Maybe she'll go down on me immediately if I tell her I have lots of money.
Right, exactly. Like that's what it was feeling like. Like I was supposed to be like, ooh, and I was like, no. He's like I said, he wasn't rude except for the texting in the movie. It was nice. I got to go out and do. That was mostly why I wanted to do it because like I just wanted to go out and do something with somebody, and like have a decent time.
Yeah.
And like it was like I said, it wasn't like oh my god horrible, but it was just one of those. We were excited to meet each other, and then as soon as we met each other, it was like oh never mind.
Yeah, there's no connection.
But we met way earlier than the movie was going to show, so we had to like do something else. We went and got food, and that's the whole thing. I kind of wish we had just done the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of wish we'd just been like, let's just deal with this for a couple hours. Let's not sign up for 4 or 5 hours of this. But we did anyway.
That's a big thing, though. I think a lot of people that either don't have dating experience or, are just introverts don't realize that a lot of times, there is always an unspoken body dating. Language type, like, you can connect so much online, but until you meet someone in person, you never know.
Yeah, like someone's voice, their presence is like, I always need to have their presence. I need to hear their voice. I need to like, not just smell them even like at a certain point. Not like I'm going to go up but like, so that's a huge part of attraction. It's a huge part of relationships.
Oh yeah, you smell great.
But like, you know what I mean,
mate.
Though? You know what I mean? But just, it's someone's presence. It's the way they feel next to you in a room. Like, that's the whole, hard part of dating online.
Yeah, well, like I said, there's a lot of unspoken shit that goes into a relationship that people don't realize.
Yeah.
When it comes to just body language, when it comes to, like you said, their presence, how they present themselves. Like, for example, you immediately drew on his appearance, not because you're shallow and evil, and I really wish people would drop that. People need to realize how you look matters. All right?
Yes.
You need to rip that Band-Aid off, and you need to fucking deal with it. I hate that so much. I hate hearing that to no end. You should just love me for me. Okay, well, I'm not going to wash my balls for 2 weeks, and you tell me you love me for me, okay, sweetheart? Because, again, there's a lot in how it's like, listen, there's a lot of people out here. There's a lot of people you are going to be compatible with. Soulmates are a lie. There are people that you are going to be very compatible with, and there's more than one of them out there. Guaranteed. You just have to look. You're going to fail, chances are, I thought my first girlfriend was going to be my last, just like everybody else thinks their first love is going to be their last.
Yeah.
But again, and we were, I'm still convinced that if I had met her now, we'd be married, 100%.
Yeah.
Timing was just off. And it's no shock that I've been looking for women similar to her, because, but again, that's what I learned, that was a very good fit, and I understood that was, and now I have the presence of mind to look back and say, yeah, it probably was a timing thing. We were both super young.
Yeah.
And it was, neither of us were really ready to just, be settled down at 20 years old, and it, just whatever, that's what happens. But I'm so sick of hearing that fucking nonsense of like, he judged me based on my looks. It's like your looks are a big part of it.
Listen, like there's a lot of people like they're not going to be into you, like for example, if you're a big girl. But guess what? There's a lot of people. There's whole websites, whole dating apps, whole fucking like fetishes about women who are on the bigger side, like either
and not even
a big,
and not even the fact that
BBW is big beautiful woman, like,
and not even the fact that it's a fetish thing. It's literally just
some
if
people
someone's
just prefer that.
to you,
they just like the way you look.
It's like if someone is physically attracted to you,
I like
or
men
you
thicker.
fit like people just get okay, relax, get away from me. But what I'm saying is like, I think people just rally against conventional beauty standards. They get really mad about like, oh well, they're like stereotypically hot or something like that because they're skinny or they have big tits or a big ass or something like that, or a guy, he's got big broad shoulders, or he's got a 6-pack or whatever. It's like those are conventional things, but people, I'll shut up. But it drives me nuts how people think that like you can just take looks out of the equation. It's like, no, fuck you.
No, it absolutely
fuck
is
you.
important.
It's like you
even if you're
it's
asexual
totally
to some
fair.
extent.
It's totally fair. If you are not attracted to someone physically, you should never force yourself into that relationship.
Here's the thing. Here's the interesting thing about
There is no successful relationship out there. None. And I refuse to believe it, and anybody who disagrees is wrong. There is no successful relationship that's healthy where someone said, well, you're really unappetizing to me visually, but let's get married.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm gonna say I agree with you on that, but here's the thing: like the one exception, one example of an exception is that I consider myself at this point somewhat demisexual, if not fully, and I've been on the fence about it, and it's just all this is like it's not labels to put on you; it's more things to understand yourself. And for me, what it is you have to have an emotional connection to have a physical attraction. And I can tell you right now, there's been multiple boyfriends of mine who, when I first met them, it wasn't like I thought, ooh, they're ugly, or I thought they were unattractive. I just it didn't register to me. They didn't register as sexual entities. I didn't find myself attracted or unattracted. But in hindsight, it was like, I wasn't, if I was attracted, I would have noticed them immediately, though. But then as I got to know them, holy shit, the physical attraction, through the roof. Like,
oh yeah. Obviously
roof.
And people can become far more attractive, obviously, the more you know them, especially.
Exactly. That is not to say they were ugly. It's not to say they were ugly. It's literally now I'm like looking at them going, look how amazing and perfect you are. Oh my God, your nose, your eyes, your lips. Like, it's just, yeah.
But that's also, but to be fair, that's also the same kind of thing that can happen opposite. You can 100%, dislike somebody more you know them, because there's how many times, and you can find this everywhere, how many times, and you've probably experienced it yourself, have you dated someone or been out with somebody and you're like, man, they're really fucking hot, or like something about them is attractive. Like, for example, I'm one of the typical types of guys that just, for some reason, redheads just do it for me. And,
right.
But I've gone on dates and I've been like, wow, she's actually kind of fucking awful.
Or are you quoting Michael Lippy?
We both have the same weakness.
Oh, but really? Okay.
It's one of those things where it's just like, I've been on dates with someone who I thought was physically attractive, and it's just like, they're kind of
quietly laughing.
They're kind of awful. They're kind of awful.
What,
and
redheads?
I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, you could be physically attracted to somebody, and then they get uglier as you know them, because that's obviously part of it. It's like someone could be, fucking super smoke. I mean, how many celebrities are smoking hot, and they're just complete scumbags. Yeah. It's like, would I still bang? Yes. Would I stick around? No. So it's like, this is strictly physical. It's like, I don't want to hear you speak. I don't want to hear your opinions.
Right. I mean, it's just important. It's one of the things when I was in grad school. One of the things I learned when we were talking about like relationship, being a couples counselor, basically like if the sex, I was heard from my professor at one point, if the sex is gone, the relationship is usually doomed. Not always, but she was like pretty much 99% though, and I was like, oh yeah, that's important, and because even if it's like both of them are either. I think the only exception to this rule would be someone who's asexual, or find somebody else who's asexual. But like that, the rarity of that is. I
feel like you kind of have to be with somebody asexual if you really,
Yeah, exactly. I've never done it. I don't know what all that is.
It's incredibly important. You need to have a physical connection. You just do.
Physical. Well, yeah. Human beings need touch. Human beings need social interaction. We are social animals.
Sure.
Even if it's just like.
Not to mention, it builds your bond. It builds your trust. It builds your relationship. Yeah. And again, if you're someone who's like asexual or that's not like a thing for you, then you should probably look for someone of that same kind.
We had a fake client like for class, and we all took turns giving them therapy, and I was the one who was brave enough to ask the question, "How's your sex life with your wife?" And everything else he answered clearly and didn't have a problem. That he went, "I don't want to talk about it," and I went, "Ooh, my guy, is it that bad? Is it that bad? Shit."
There it is.
I wanted so bad to be like, I'm sorry, bro.
There it is.
Yeah, it was like that's what we got to focus on.
It's the Mojave out here, my friend.
That's what we need to talk about, but he doesn't want to talk about that, so it's like shit. Well, but anyway.
But yeah, it's a good conversation, and again, it's one of those things again where people take too much, ironically, I think they take too much advice from other people about their relationships. They just need to realize that you need to be attracted to someone. Physically, spiritually, it's like, you can't survive on just one.
Yeah, like you're not going to be super physically attracted to somebody but have no way of like talking to each other. Like that relationship is a no-go, so why wouldn't something, when you're absent the physical be?
Then the opposite can happen too, which sucks. But like you could have like no physical attraction to someone, or like no interest in them like physically, but then you could have great conversations. You could love talking to them. They could be funny, but it's like they're platonic, And it's like, is there a potential for a relationship there? Sure, as a friend, and you can talk about the dreaded friend zone. But it's like,
yeah, but if you don't have, a bad thing to be in.
At least some degree.
Some people are just meant to be your friend, dude.
Problem.
Like,
oh sure.
Also, let me just clarify though, the friend zone doesn't exist. Like that, I just believe that it's not like being put in the friend zone. It's someone just isn't attracted to you, and they would rather have you as a friend. That's all that is. Like we don't.
I will disagree and say the friend zone is real. It doesn't mean what people who commonly talk about it think it means.
I'm gonna make a note for us to talk about this later because we're gonna go on a fucking tangent because we want to get
I
largely
agree. I think I largely agree because again. The whole friend zone thing is typically spoken about by losers that think that they can force people into sexual relationships by guilt or manipulation.
Yep.
They see someone. And
she won't. Why won't they be with me? What's wrong with these fucking females? Like
I held the door 6 times and she's not even sucking me off. Anyone who
unironically uses the word females to describe women, it just immediately I'm like, okay, you need to sit down. Sit down before you hurt yourself because you have no idea what you're talking about.
I consider it a minor red flag. When I hear someone say females, I'm just like...
I don't say it's not minor for me. It's almost a trigger, I would say, because I'm like, oh, females, huh? We're talking about like in fucking science terms? All right, bitch. Let's talk about males.
Yeah. The only reason I say it's a small red flag is because I leave a little bit of room for the ignorant that are not willingly ignorant. They could just be people that are inexperienced and they think that like they don't know how to, they might not realize how clinical they sound or how like silly they sound to be like, well
that's why you say it. That's what I mean.
There's going to be people that are inexperienced that sound that way, but there are going to also be, which is why I call it a minor red flag for me. There also are going to be people that say it as in, they're typically people that see women as, as meat. And they say, oh, females. And it's like, okay, unless you are on National Geographic talking about the female of a species, you can relax.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway.
So the first thing that we have pulled into here that we're going to go into, and I swear we're not going to shamelessly do this every episode, but it's a ton of fun.
It is,
and that's Reddit dumpster diving.
Yes.
And there's a lot of YouTube channels that fall into this trap, but we wanted to try it out a couple of times, and it's going to be a rotating segment. And yep, we're going to double dip and do it again. And Reddit dumpster diving is we're going to be bringing up some of our favorite Reddit posts, whether it's recent, whether it's in the past. We each pulled up a pair of Reddit posts / comments. What's that?
I just like controversial ones or ones that are like the top of all time.
Well, the tops of all time are never controversial. That's the problem.
Some of them are.
The best... Yeah, I disagree. Okay. But that's just me. I think the best controversial Reddit threads are never at the top because even though the Reddit code of ethics is that you're not supposed to downvote things because you don't like them, that's 100% what they do. It's 100% what they do.
Yeah.
So the best controversies are never, The most common controversies make it to top, like EA having the most hated comment of all time. Still hilarious. If you're someone who browses Reddit somewhat regularly, you've probably heard this one, but this is one of my favorite Reddit posts because it is a fucking ride. It is from the Confession subreddit, and it's titled, "I stood by and allowed my wife to almost kill our son. I was happy she did it." So I'm going to skip right to the end and I'm going to skip right to the end and give some context that he gives later in the post, which is this happened. His son was born in 1971, so this is not a recent thing, and this guy's obviously an older guy. His daughter was born in 88. He's going to be 70 this year, which was 4 years ago, and his wife has already passed. His wife passed in 2016. He's got a great life now, and he has no idea where his son is, and hasn't seen him in almost, 10 years, it sounds like, so far.
What the fuck?
The story is an absolute ride, because it's one of those things where you sit there and say, maybe it's a creative writing exercise. That's the typical Reddit skepticism that the whole thing is bullshit, right? Because people are just making shit up.
Right.
But this guy tells a story of how him and his wife, very fucking normal people, normal house, normal life, they end up getting pregnant. They tried getting pregnant. He wasn't an accident. It wasn't unplanned. The guy, I'll quote some things that he says here. "From the day my son was born, he came out wrong." He says,
"What?
He was wanted and loved. We showered affection on him. We really tried to give him a happy childhood. But from the day we brought him home from the hospital, he was miserable. He cried for 13 months straight." He goes, "I'm not exaggerating. 13 months. He would cry until he had no voice, and then he would keep crying." He goes, "You could see his face scrunched up with no sound, totally hoarse. There were times we would literally be crying in his sleep," and he goes, "I've never heard of any other kid doing this." He talks about how they brought him to doctors, specialists, diets, behavioral stuff like holding him, rocking him, specialty toys, swaddling, music, everything they could think of, and nothing worked.
Sounds like more than like colic, but an extreme case of it.
And there's no chance that it's that, because that probably is something that was pretty early on. According to this guy, anyways, nothing worked. And he said that it was one of those things that eventually it just stopped. It was one of those things that eventually he got over it. But he was like, the one line that hits me, I think, the most out of the whole story, especially when you read it again, is he says, "It quickly became clear that for some unknown reason, he was just angry that he was alive." And he goes on to tell stories about how his son is vindictive. He's mean. He would smash and destroy everything. He found joy in causing pain. And, it was one of those things where he was just this problem child. Like the stereotype, everybody by now is probably pulling away and saying, okay, he's got to be lying, right? Like mom and dad did a terrible job raising him, right? They were absent parents. They were abusive. And that could be it. That could be it. But this guy, again, keeps trying to claim that there's nothing but love that they tried. And again, take it with a grain of salt. But the story's outrageous because the guy goes on to talk about how, 9 to 15, everything, like even the serial killer stuff, like he was torturing animals and like he would piss and shit all over the house.
That's literally describing my ex-boyfriend and serial killers.
From 9 to 15, he claims he would piss and shit in our bed until we locked our door so he couldn't get in there anymore. And then he would shit in the hallway. Just as a way of, like, trying to get back at us.
Protest.
From 9 to 15, okay? And he said at one point, he actually stabbed me in the hip and the ass. I still have the scars from them. And that was when he was 10 years old, he stabbed me. So they started having to hide knives and, like, things like that. There was a stray dog that hung out in a park near our house, and it turns out that he stabbed it in the eye with a barbecue fork. He dipped a cat's tail in gasoline and lit it on fire. And in the guy's own quote, he says he became a vicious, stinking beast that lived in our house. And so, long and short of it, I'm not going to read the whole post, but goes on and on. They end up getting pregnant again. So, they had a moment, where they were like,
no.
Is this one going to come out wrong? Because, at that point, you have to assume, do we just have bad genes? Like, are we just fucking cursed?
Or what does the kid do to the baby?
And that was obviously that was another thing. They were just like, what do we do? So he said we talked about options. We decided to have the baby, and if it turned out evil, then we would adopt it out. We couldn't do it again. They had a daughter. She was normal. She was sleeping within a couple of months. She was teething happily, as opposed to the son, who apparently tried to basically rip his mother's nipples off, was literally just normal. And he goes, this is where I believe, and this is why I think the story is true, because the guy admits, he goes, this is where I've started to really pull back from my son. Up until that time, whatever mistakes I made, I always tried to do the best for him. I'm convinced of that. And he goes on to detail about how everything with her was what they thought it was going to be being a parent, you know?
Yeah.
The kid is happy, the kid is fine. So their relationship with their son fizzles out completely. And so a lot of places in the house are locked because this kid is literally still just a tornado. You know, he's just a tornado of destruction. Right. So he's about 17 at this time. So him and the son had a little bit of a fight. So the son had left the house. And so him and his wife were, quote, enjoying some peace in the kitchen while the daughter slept in her bedroom, and then she started to cry. And the guy points out that every parent learns what those different cries mean.
Yes.
They know when the kid is hungry. They can, whether it's mother's intuition, parents' intuition, whatever. You can tell.
You can be able to tell different. Yeah, you can. I know exactly what that. Not necessarily baby, but with also with dogs.
And they said, we've never heard this cry before. It sounded like terror. So they ran to her room, and he's in there. He snuck into her room from outside the house, and he's got a knife on her. And he's already cut her in several different places, just running it down her fucking stomach. And, like, not stabbing her, he's literally nicked her in a couple of places, like he's toying with her.
What the fuck?
And he goes, before I knew what I was doing, I ran to put myself between them. He goes, my wife got there faster. It was like a movie was on fast forward. She got right between him. She knocked the knife out of his hand and then shoved him with her whole body weight so hard that he flew away from the crib and legitimately bounced off the wall. He goes, I grabbed my daughter and held her while my wife screened us. So stood between, him and the son. And he goes on to describe that his wife is not a big woman and is also not some helpless woman either. She's fairly dainty, but she's a boxer. He goes, I'm pretty sure that she could have taken me most parts of our lives. She's a formidable woman. And she fucking starts wailing on him.
Yeah.
Throws one punch and clearly shakes him. Because she threw a full-on punch right on the side of his head. Shook him, and then just kept going.
Good.
And going.
That's the natural thing to do.
And going. And going. And he said, I could have reached out and stopped her. I could have dragged her out of the room, taken her away, and calmed her. But I just stood there. And she was systematically injuring him. He said she was swinging at his head, then down to his body, then to his head, then back down. She was literally alternating. And he was crying at this point, screaming for her to stop. And he said it's the most genuine reaction he's ever heard his son had to anything. But she wouldn't stop. And he goes, she just started going faster. It was like he was a heavy bag. And he said, I literally just took my daughter into the kitchen, gave her a bath in the sink, soothed her, put some Band-Aids on her cuts, and I sat in the kitchen and just waited until it was silent and she came out of the room. Her hands were covered in bruises, a little bit of blood, none of it hers, and there was no sound coming from the other room. And I asked her, is he dead? She looked back at me and she said, I fucking hope so.
Yeah.
And he goes, I understood how she felt perfectly. I felt the same. I didn't know what to do, so we just sat there waiting silently. Eventually, she started to cry and went to take a shower, and I just sat there with our daughter. And after for a while, he goes on to then claim that he finally came up, because he did go in the room to check on his son, and his son,
he didn't even check on him.
Yep, he went in to check on him eventually. When he was rolling around, covered in blood, lying in his own vomit. He said his nose was flat to his face. His eyes were swollen shut. He was missing teeth. His wife legitimately tried to kill him.
Yeah.
And
that's what happens when you fuck with a mother's baby, dude. What do you think?
And I know this is getting long-winded, but I wanted to illustrate the whole scene. But basically, that's where it resolved. They basically resigned the top floor of the house and left him there. And basically just decided, we're going to stay in the basement, we're never going to interact with him, and we're just going to let him make a decision. We're not going to feed him. He can either just live up there and be alone and by himself, or we'll see what happens. They're just not going to interact with him. And eventually, he destroyed the whole upstairs and then just vanished. He said, we have no idea where he is. We actually moved so that he couldn't find us. But it's a horrendous story because obviously it's one, and that's why people, a lot of people accuse it of being fake because it sounds like a movie script, but it is.
That
it's
shit
just one
happens.
of those things. I mean, it sounds awful, but like some people, it's rare, but some
it's
people,
real.
I mean, therapy is not a cure. There's some people that there is a part of them that has
Something's
to want
wrong.
it, and there's
born
just
that
something
way.
wrong. Yeah, there's something that, I mean, for all we know, if there was a way to know the definite truth of it, the kid could have had, fucking brain damage from birth, and it could just be something that was never understood or never. And this is the 70s into the 80s, right? So therapy's nowhere near as good. Who knows, what went on, but it was just such a dark and haunting thing. And I remember just reading it and just being like, holy shit. Just the idea of him sitting in the kitchen, waiting for her to come back in. She's completely probably just covered in her own sweat and tears, and she's covered in blood, and she tried to kill her own son, and then they just let him leave. And the guy at this point says, I live with my daughter. She's 31. They're happy. I have 2 granddaughters. He goes, I talk to a therapist a couple times a month about this exact thing, And he said the very last time I ever saw him was when he was lying on the floor of the bedroom, beaten and smashed. And I've never heard from him since. It's 30 years since I saw him last. He goes, I carry a ton of guilt, conflicted emotions. He goes, I didn't beat him, but I could have stopped it, But I thought he deserved it, and I was happy it happened. I didn't try to kill him, but I would have been happy if she had killed him. And it was one of those things where it's just an awful feeling, because obviously, that guy, no matter what happens, there's always going to be at least 1% of love left over that you can't kill. Even if it's hard to find it, it's going to always be there because they're your kid.
Right.
But it's just like, it's just harrowing, and I thought the whole thing was, yeah.
I mean, it's a great story, and I was like hooked in. Talking,
it also balances out the porn conversation since we were getting a little too risque. I figured we'd get a little dark too.
I was looking more at current events, like things that like I have opinions on, and like relationships. But confessions, first of all, is a better subreddit. But second,
listen, stop shooting yourself down. I liked yours.
No, I know, I know you did. I'm just saying that like
you're valid.
Yours. Next time I need to do like my favorite post. Like one of my favorite posts ever is the guy with 2 dicks. That whole
Jesus Christ!
That AMA is so fucking great.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I think I read that was fake.
No, he posted a picture.
I know.
Really?
I don't know how true that is, but recently I had heard that was either staged or that it was not exact. Like he either had a prosthetic or I don't know. I could be completely talking my ass, but I'm pretty sure I heard. I'm pretty
sure it's real because the answers he had it sounded so legit. The answers were not, these big dramatic things. Like it was like he's a weird dude, but like obviously he's gonna be weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. If we go through the AMA and read all the questions and answers, it's fucking fascinating. But I don't want to do that right now. I have another one that I was.
Go ahead. I didn't really have much else on mine. All I wanted to do was just share that story because, again, I thought it was absolutely insane, and I'm a darkly edgy person when it comes to this kind of human psychology, and this kind of stuff fascinates me, even though it's awful, and even though it's, it really hits you in a lot of different emotions. But I like taboo subjects and things like this, and this is something where I remember reading it and just being like, Jesus, man, this is unique, and it's one of those things where it's like, I can't imagine what it's got to be like, to have this thing that you're supposed to love that's produced, it's the product of your love with another person is this child, and for it to essentially, and it goes against everything science tells you, but to say that it came out wrong feels so, like it's like counterproductive, but like the more you read about it, it's like maybe he just did, just and like I
think
said,
that's true.
In a way, go ahead.
No, I'm saying I think it's true. That way, sorry, I get just I get trying to say something for a minute and then it gets goes out of my head.
Sorry,
it's okay. I've met that. I guess what I'm saying that I've met someone kind of like this. I know someone very close, where basically I've met someone who they inflict pain and they enjoy it, or they're paying enough to get revenge and think that that's the right thing to do, and don't check it and just do it. This is my ex, and so actually it ties into the next story I'm going to read, where I was like, that mindset, that self-absorbed, idiotic mindset, where like all they care about is themselves. It hurts, and it also feels cathartic to read this post that I'm about to read, because it's kind of along the same lines about, like, it's pretty obvious what the answer is here, but if you just hear the way that this person reads it, or writes it rather, that's the same kind of person. That absolute narcissistic, psychotic, like there's things that especially with serial killers that happen that could cause it, like an absent father or an overbearing mother. But sometimes you get people like the BTK, which is they had an absolutely normal childhood, they weren't abused, they're just born that way. And that was my main question with the man I was with. But here's somebody, listen to this. I, 22 female, got drunk a few weeks ago and slept with another man. My boyfriend, 27 male, found out. We agreed to stay together under a term. So a few weeks ago, I got really drunk and slept with another man. The next morning, I regretted it big time and immediately let my boyfriend know and apologized like crazy in every possible way. My boyfriend was totally upset and refused to talk to me for a few days.
What an asshole.
But when... yeah, really. But when he came around, he said he'll stay with me as long as I never drink again, stay away from the bar, nightclub, or party where there will be a lot of drinking. Also, I'm supposed to answer any message within an hour. I love my boyfriend, but the term he has said is incredibly strict. It is so hard to watch my friends going out and having fun. My boyfriend, on the other hand, doesn't drink at all. I tried to ask him if we can talk about it. His reply was no. I don't know what to do anymore. It is getting so hard. I really love my boyfriend, but yet it is so hard to watch my friends go out having fun and hearing about it.
I'm having a hard time hearing you over this overwhelming violin noise in my head.
Right? Knowing I have no part in it. Does anyone have any suggestions on a compromise that may work or anything like that? And the first comment is, this post has basically convinced me that I will never take back a cheater ever. Like, I'm disgusted by your attitude and the fact that you heard him cause doesn't even register for you. Maybe this will help. Imagine your boyfriend cheated on you with one of his female friends. You take it back on the condition that he cuts off contact with her. Not even a month later, he comes to you complaining that he misses hanging out with his friend and the rule of not being able to hang out with her is too strict. How would you feel? You don't have to give your friends or your boyfriend. Don't try to compromise. You don't deserve it. Don't put that man through any more trouble or heartbreak than you could put him through. And I was like, thank you. What the fuck? The entitlement that just oozes through the whole post. I was like, oh, you fucking bitch. That's a child, 22. I can just do anything I want, right? And there's no repercussions for it because I'm young and hot. Like, grow the fuck up. Are you kidding me? That the fact that he has those, the poor boy is trying to give her unrealistic fucking limits. It's like, no, the trust is gone. And all I have to say is, like, I had a boyfriend cheat on me at one point, and I wish I had just ended it at that point, because that was where the trust ended. That was where it really ended, and it was like, once they do that, it's over. It's fucking over, and you just have to accept it. Just walk away. I don't know what your feelings are about that. What do you think?
I'm going to start off, because I know where the majority of my opinion is. I'm going to start off by playing a slight devil's advocate. So,
okay.
I'm going to say his terms are a little much.
Yeah,
but at the same time, they
hurt.
are also somewhat understandable. And it gets worse when you read some of the comments that she made in the thread.
Yeah.
Like, one of the comments that she made is she said he's never drank his whole life because his father was an alcoholic. He doesn't have alcohol in his house because of it.
Yeah, so he's getting triggered.
I didn't even know how he is around alcohol for the first 2 months I knew him. That I don't believe. I think that's kind of crazy that in the first 2 months you knew someone, assuming she just means know and not date, but like in the first like week that you know somebody, there's a good chance you're going to get at least an idea of their social life, since you're probably going to go on a date, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe she's just talking about knowing him, but like, oh, he does everything himself. He does pretty much everything with himself or with me. Sometimes he'll go surfing or longboarding with a friend or two and meet someone for coffee or dinner, but that's it. Like, she complains about, like, his, like, social life being different than hers, and I won't lie, that's where I'm kind of also playing a little bit of devil's advocate, because it's like, maybe, no, it's not devil's advocate. I'm changing my direction with this. But,
okay.
Like,
oh, you're gonna go back.
No, not back or anything. I'm changing what I was about to say now. It's weird. They don't seem compatible the way she describes him.
Yeah.
It's like her idea of social life is going out and getting wasted. His idea of a social life is not that.
Normal.
She talks about loving him very much, and it's like, I'm going to be a little armchair psychologist here and say, I think that she might love him because he's not as self-destructive as she is.
There's an armchair psychologist right there, but that's a good point.
Like, is that why she loves him so much? Because he's not out blinding himself and brain damaging himself with alcohol?
It's probably because he's 6'4".
I also like the idea that, a few weeks ago, I got really drunk and I ended up sleeping with another man. So there's a few big problems with that. One, just the actual cheating, but like, so what happened? I like the fact that that's where that ends, because I feel there's a lot more there that we're not talking about. If you are such a floozy that when you go out and hang out with your friends, you might end up riding a stranger's dick, then yeah, it's not that shocking that your boyfriend would be like, I'd kind of prefer you to not hang out with those stupid slut friends that are going to let you go bang another dude. You know, like, Jesus Christ, even when guys are hanging out with each other, if they know their guy friend is married or like has a girlfriend, even then they'll just be like, all right, dude, back away, she's dangerous, or like, you know, who are these friends that you're hanging out with? And then like this idea that like, oh, well, I can't go out and party. It's like, are all your friends just a bunch of drunks? There's nothing you can do?
Yeah.
Your whole social life is the bar or a nightclub? It's like, listen, I get it. I'm totally cool with people that their idea of having fun is getting wasted. Okay? If you like having a few drinks and going out dancing, that's
right.
Great.
Right.
Not for me, but that's great if that's you. I could probably date a girl that liked that. I wouldn't indulge in it as much, but, you know. But if something like this happened, I'm breaking it immediately.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. He must love her more than her if he's willing to put up with her and give her these terms in the first place.
She's probably hot, and he's in love with a girl who just, like, kind of, you know, love bombed him, and now it doesn't sound like she's that into him. It sounds like he's, like, really into her and actually loves her, and she's kind of casual in the relationship.
I mean, it is pretty telling that her first concern is, I can't party anymore. And it's like, right. How about, like, what you did to him?
Exactly. That's what the first comment I was reading said. Like, why?
Yeah,
you're so concerned.
What about what you did to him?
I can't go and drink anymore. I'm like, what if the fact that this is going to influence the rest of his life? He's going to be hard, like, to have trust issues. Going into the next relationship. Like,
I have a pretty big feeling. I have a pretty big feeling this might not be the first time that she cheated on him.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. I think she's leaving out.
I know that's judgmental, but I have a feeling that might not be the first time she either got touchy with, or there's a chance that the guy she slept with is someone she knew.
I was literally about to say that myself. I was like, that's my concern when I was reading this. I'm like, when someone's guilty like that, they leave out a lot of details. That's why when someone's a victim, it's like paragraphs and paragraphs, but when someone's kind of being the dick, it's very short because they're leaving out information that's crucial to understanding the context. And I think she's leaving out the fact that this is not the first time, because that's why all the rules are too strict. She thinks that she's convinced herself and deluded herself into thinking that it's just because of this one time that she cheated. But, like, you know, obviously there's more, because she's discounting, saying that her actions in the past don't matter, basically. It's only this one. That's why he's mad. And so she can just delude herself into thinking that she doesn't need to include that.
And this is why I also don't, because I don't like absolutes, but the whole once a cheater, always a cheater thing has always been an interesting topic, because one, I'm, a sociology focused person. I like talking about and discussing this kind of stuff, but it's one of the few absolutes I've had a hard time reconciling with, because I really don't think I could ever take back a cheater. And I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of people in this thread, where it's like, as much as I loved them, I mean, we'll go ahead and use the cringy 90s Linkin Park example and say, once the paper's been crumpled up, it can't be perfect again, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things where as soon as you break that trust just once, if you make it all the way to the end of your life together, all the way, but that is in your past, there was still never 100% trust in that relationship, because as soon as you ruin it, it's never getting fixed. Yeah. It's never getting fixed because they're never going to forget it. And it might even reach 90%. It might even get pretty high up there again in terms of trust, but it's never going to be 100.
Yeah,
It's never going to be 100 because they know you have the capacity.
Yep, it's the same thing with when if you hit someone, they're never going to trust you fully again, because now that they know that there's something there's something they could do or say that's going to just get them hurt and in trouble, like they're in trouble and like getting hurt, like with being trained with pain.
It's the same concept. It's a breach of trust. In your case, it would be a physical breach of trust, a straight up physical breach of trust. Whereas, this is obviously actually a physical breach technically, but also, a mental one, because
this is where it's funny for me, because I had stereotypical daddy issues. So of course, when I got cheated, someone cheated on me, I took them back because I didn't have enough self-esteem and self-worth to understand. No, fuck that. Like exactly everything I understand now.
Most people are also, and I'm sure you fall into this too, but most people are also decent enough to be like, try to understand and be like, okay, maybe they really do mean it. They were really sorry, and that it was a real weakness, and people have weak moments, and they do.
Because I heard the same thing.
But I'm saying I think people have that mindset.
I found out going through his phone, and then of course, just like any other cheater, the focus became, oh, you went through my phone. It's like, that's not the problem here. You're totally trying to misdirect us on purpose. Like I'm the one who did something. No, that's just gaslighting. That's all that is. And
to be fair, you both did something wrong, quote unquote. But clearly, there is a much bigger problem with what the other person found.
I knew he was fucking lying. I knew that something had happened, and I was right.
Like I said,
communicating me, and I deserved to know, and he wasn't ever going to tell me.
Like I said, I'm not saying you are any more in the wrong than him. Obviously,
I'm just saying I didn't do anything wrong. Of course I did. But I also knew what I fucking knew. You know what I'm saying?
His outweighs yours a lot. If we're being strict, if we're being really technical and female about this, and scientific and clinical and all those fun terms.
And then you hear it, it's not a big deal. It wasn't even much. It was just this, like, he won't even talk to me about it, so I can have. It
was just a little rim job, honey. It wasn't a big deal.
Right. I was like, that's fucking bullshit. Because the problem was at the time he was love bombing me, basically making it feel like
my widow Emma Wemma, my favoriteest of all time.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, the second that he was, the same kind of thing. The second he was drunk and like having a fun time, I went out the window. So it's like, clearly you didn't like me that much. I need someone to fuck
me. That's not my girlfriend. Hell yeah. Wait a minute. What do you mean she found out?
Yeah. Again, there's been other times where something happened where people being unfaithful, but that was the most blatant time. Mm-hmm. And I should have just ended it and. Maybe remained friends, but Anyway, I was 20. I was like
probably
24,
not.
25 and young.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, if someone's going to do that to you in a relationship, they're probably not going to be a good friend.
Well, here's the thing. There's the thing that, it's like,
when they clearly don't respect you to a point,
Yeah, that you might be right, because now you're describing a friendship I do have with the same guy.
And listen, I'm not trying to knock it, but it is one of those things where it's like, listen, if they couldn't respect you as a romantic partner, a friendship might work, but there's always got to be a reminder that this person did this to you. So it's like, how good of a friend could they really be? Well, it's also really hard in general, obviously, to stay friends with someone that you're romantically linked to.
Well, depending if it's been time. Like, Mike and I are still friends.
But that's because you're both ding-dongs.
We hang out in Discord all the time.
Yeah, but that's because you're both ding-dongs.
No, I think it's because we had a. There wasn't.
You also had a. Yeah, that's the other thing, is that you guys had a mutual break. You didn't fucking cheat on each other or beat each other.
Yeah, we both just were like, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, you guys That's what I mean. Mutual. You guys
It's
came
almost,
to a point.
That's almost worse. I gotta be honest. It's like almost worse than like a huge fiery end blowout. Like because
it's 100% worse.
It's so much worse because it's just like
it's 100%.
It's breaking my heart, and I love this person, but it's just not gonna work. There's nothing that happened. Nobody cheated. Nothing like there's nothing to center my brain on. It just doesn't work. It's such a fucking hard thing. It's like it's such an adult concept to have to grasp. It sucked. It sucked ass.
I'm pretty sure there is a Slipknot lyric in mind that I have, but I can't remember it, and I'm going to feel terrible because I'm going to remember it immediately as soon as this is over. But it's the same concept.
Yeah, I gotta show you something when I wish you were.
Yeah, it's like I wish you did something awful so that I could just write you off, because that's what people want. Because that'll make a break much easier. It's like we've talked about before, and I mentioned earlier in the conversation about how my first girlfriend was a really hard fall for me because it was my first real serious relationship. And it really was a timing thing. We were just both so young, and we had a lot of things we wanted to do, and we weren't just going to settle down, especially her. And it was one of those things where it was like,
sometimes
sucks,
I believe it's not who. Sometimes I really believe it's not who, it's when. Like it's the timing has to be right. Yeah,
everything doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to line up. It's like
absolutely.
It's one of the reasons age gaps, depending on the age gap, can be so devastating, because obviously. Like if you're really young, there's things you want to do. You want to explore things. You want to experience life, whereas when you're getting older, quote unquote, or like even just in your 30s where you're like, okay, I'm trying to make sure I have a steady career. I kind of want to make sure I have some stability, compared to that's why someone who's 35 is going to have trouble dating someone who's 21, because, not because there's a gross age gap. It's like, there's an age gap there, but it's legal, it's a little, so it's a gap, but it's like, listen, are we going to really pretend that 10 years, whatever is a terrible thing? It's not like you're fucking 40 dating an 18-year-old, but, and, it's one of those things so again, weird. There's still let's just say early 20s versus late 30s, right? That those won't combine because you're at different stages in your life.
Yeah.
And granted, some people in their early 20s already have shit figured out, but they're in the minority.
Very true.
So,
yeah.
But for the most part, you don't. Because you're not supposed to yet. You're supposed to be out of college or just figuring out your career and getting things worked out, But again, it just depends on where you are. And like you said, it's right. Things have to line up. They don't have to be perfect.
Yep.
But they do have to line up.
It does. It's absolutely true. Okay, so anyway, let's go into yours. Let's go into your second post. Let's go into that.
That's okay. And listen, if we overrun, it's fine. We can stick to this because there's lots of good conversation.
There's good conversation there, but for me, it's so personal because I'm sitting here literally going the way you're describing, I'm thinking about my abusive ex.
I'm trying to assault your friends.
The psychotic dude that you were just describing in your second post almost kind of didn't trigger me, but I was just like, that's exactly the way I described my ex. There's things about him that are just alarming to the point of it it not just alarming, disturbing. It's awful. There's the way he enjoys being petty and the way he enjoys inflicting pain and being manipulative and just he's an expert at it. And it's also, though, you can tell because he doesn't have the same group of friends. Narcissists have a ever rotating.
Sounds a little more like sadism.
They don't have the they don't have. God damn it! You just totally got me off track.
Sorry.
Fuck. I don't know. And I was just going to say
you were just talking about how there was a lot of warning signs and how they described
and that he's so good at hiding. But people like that, narcissists, don't have old friends. They don't have something. Here's a friend I've had from the, for example, he didn't have any friends from the military. That's kind of a red flag right there because you should be something. I think that he committed a war crime. He had a fucking what do you call the head coverings of someone who's Middle Eastern. I don't remember what it's called, but
a hijab or something like that.
Yes, thank you.
I think it's a hijab.
Is it whatever? Yeah, it's like that. And he took the head of the headdress.
It's the thing. It's the thing that covers their hair. It doesn't cover their face. The hijab covers their hair.
He took it as a trophy, and he still shows it to people. He shows it all the time. Not really you're literally bragging about a war crime.
Yeah, a little weird.
Exactly, things like that.
I don't know if I'd want to be friends with that, but just me.
That's my point. That's my point.
It's that's a guy that definitely should talk to somebody, and hopefully, wish him well in his future endeavors. But he definitely should talk to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that he says, "Oh, I do. Like the VA just takes forever." It's like there's always an excuse.
Yeah, it's a nice excuse.
There's always an excuse. There's always some reason why he can't do something that's right.
It's like, listen, bro, I'm a fat lazy bastard, and I still managed to get a therapist. Figure it out.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, he like just on protests, he's just so bizarrely contrarian, like for no reason, like drinking water. He gets like bitchy about drinking water because because of what I did in the early relationship, which is get him to drink water. And then he was bitchy about it after we broke up, like it was like a symbol of me drinking water, and he stopped doing it. And I'm just like, so, because even though it's unhealthy for you and you're literally making yourself sicker, that you would rather do it just as a fuck you to me, like just disturbing, stupid behavior like that, and it gets so much worse. I could tell you nightmares of how deep it gets, but like especially if we're talking about porn and things like that, like good
hell
God.
Yeah, dicks and butts.
But I'm not gonna go that far. But anyway,
let's get back to talking about dicks and butts.
Dicks and ass. Dicks and ass.
I like how your two are about dicks and butts, and mine are about existential crises. Because the second one that I have is one of the most fascinating stories I've ever read. It's shorter than the other one, and again, probably fake, but it's pretty great. Okay. And I'm gonna omit some details before I expose the story because I think it works better that way. But I'm gonna do a quick summary of it. So the guy says, my last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. He was 325 pounds, I was 120, so I went unconscious. So I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip, my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. And after 2 years, we got married, and almost immediately, we had a daughter. I had a great job. My wife didn't have to work outside the house. She got to be a homemaker. My daughter was born. Then my wife... then we had another child. We had a son. My son was the joy of my life. I'd walk to his room every morning, and I would dote on my daughter. Everything is great. One day, I'm sitting on the couch, and I notice that the perspective of the lamp is odd, like it was inverted. It was still in 3D, but it felt wrong. It was a square lamp base, red and gold trim, on 4 legs on a white square shade. I was transfixed, and I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night, staring at it. The next morning, I called out of work. I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about the lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to go to the bathroom. Soon I stopped that too, because I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at this fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife was really worried and said, "Do need to get someone over here to talk to you." And by this time, my cognizance was breaking and my wife was freaking out. So she took the kids to her mother's before I had my epiphany. I realized the lamp wasn't real.
What the fuck?
The house wasn't real. My wife wasn't real. And then I fucking woke up on the sidewalk. All I could see was red. I heard voices and screams and I felt a shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth," and I opened my eyes and I was back on the sidewalk where the guy hit me.
What
and
the fuck?
I was surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots of them were freaking out. And at some point, a cop scooped me up and walked me across the sidewalk to the grass and threw me into the back of a cop car. I didn't know what happened. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital. He didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive so I could get CT scans and shit. Fast forward after that, I went through 3 years of a horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of a wife and child and children, and dealing with the knowledge that they not only never existed, but that they were never going to exist. I was scared that I was going insane, and I would cry myself to sleep hoping I would see her in my dreams, which I never have. Sometimes I see my son in my dreams, usually just a glimpse out of my peripherals, and he is always 5 years old, and I can never hear what he's saying to me. So this guy writes a story, which again, decide whether or not, and it's in this thread, there were a lot of people sharing similar stories of this idea that this guy lived a life while unconscious. And then snapped out of it.
That is so crazy. It's like some Inception shit.
Exactly. It's like some crazy fucking, again, existential crisis shit where, and I'm sure if not by now, someone has already done a movie or something similar to this. I'm not going to pretend to know every fucking book and movie that's ever been made, but it is definitely something that I would be surprised if it's not already a film, has probably been done similarly. But it's always stuck with me because it's one of those things that's just outlandish. Like, just imagine just one day you just wake up and it's like you just realize that everything you just experienced was all in your sleep.
That would be
Talk about just an absolute mind fuck. And then the fact that the guy claims that, you know, he's been through 3 years of therapy and depression because of it, you know. And the crazier thing about it is that the thread, again, is full of conversations from people saying that they understand him because claiming that they've had similar, even on smaller scale experiences where they've either been knocked unconscious or they were in a coma, and then they come back to reality, which of course then leaves them with the existential crisis of, am I in the real reality or am I still dreaming, you know, and all this other shit. And
that's some straight up Inception shit.
Yeah, and it was just like, that story always stuck with me because I always, thought it would be a great horror movie, which again, I can't see how it hasn't been done yet because this is literally like a 10-year-old post. But it was from the subreddit, or it was reposted in the subreddit Glitch in the Matrix, which is a hilarious little subreddit, but it's basically the idea of, like, you know, you've experienced something weird that, like, you can't explain, so like they call it a glitch in the Matrix, right?
Yeah, I get it.
And most of the stories are kind of dopey, but there are some that are just like, that's fucking spooky, and this was one of the ones that I always remembered because it was just like, could you imagine like going through that, and the fact that like his brain was telling him through that hallucination, through the lamp, that he's asleep. And he didn't realize it, you know, for a little bit of time until it finally clicked. And then as soon as he realized it, he says the lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted. It took up my entire perspective, and then he came back to.
Jesus Christ.
But, yeah,
that,
like you said.
I've never heard of anything like that happen. I mean, like, I can imagine, like, your life, that's what people mean when they say the life flashes before their eyes. But the idea of having an entire life and, like you said, like, grieving a family that just doesn't
never existed. Yeah, never happened.
That's fucking crazy.
Like, just imagine, like, getting up tomorrow and finding out that the woman who you thought was your mother was never real.
Oh,
and just being like,
yeah, that's okay. That makes it real.
You know?
That makes it real.
I don't mean to throw you into a depression, but, you know, it's one of those things where, like, you know, someone you love, and then just to wake up the next day and be like, oh, yeah, so by the way, you're totally thinking of someone that's not real. This is the real person that is that person. Or they just never existed, like this guy's wife, you know? And it's like, oh, I'm going to go lay down for 3 years.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, dude.
Not to mention, and again, assuming it's real, because I can literally hear people in the comment threads just being like, it's Reddit.
There's plenty of things that people.
Like, yeah, I know.
There's that's the problem, is that words don't do it justice. There's plenty of things that people experience and have when you have PTSD that are not real, but also extreme. Are you fucking kidding? No, it's real. Like having, for example, I had a therapist when I was 15 once. And I wish I could have gone back to him, but he lives in a place I don't live anymore. He was asking me, like, I was talking about my symptoms that I have with my PTSD, my physical ones, and he goes, do you ever have pain in your left hip? And I just looked at him and went, what the fuck? How in the motherfuck did you know that? And he goes, that's where pain, manifests itself with people with PTSD. I was like, all of them? He goes, like, if you have pain, like, yeah, that's where it is. Like, the body, your body literally physically stores your emotions and your trauma in places. I read this amazing book called The Body Never Lies. I would recommend anybody to check it out. It's such a great book. That basically, like, all my trauma I hold in my left hip, and you feel physical pain. It's like psychosomatic pain is what it's called, and it's like, is there something actually, a knife in my leg? No, of course not. But I feel a knife in my fucking leg. It's very real and an excruciating amount of pain, and maybe that's when you get, pain medicine, and it helps. It's just that doesn't just because it's in your head. I cannot tell you. I fucking loathe the term, oh, it's in your head. Bitch, everything's in my fucking head. You know how I can see you right now and hear you, and I can feel you, and like listening to your stupid voice, like with those stupid words coming out of your fucking head? Yeah, that's all in your head, dumbass. The organ is called your brain. That's where things happen. That's where every goddamn thing in the world is in your head. Shut the fuck up. Like the condescending, gaslighting bullshit. I can't stand it when people say that.
That's some Dumbledore shit right there.
Yeah, thank
Do
you.
you remember the quote?
What does he say? No.
So in the 7th, because it made me think of in the 7th book, the very end. Spoilers for Harry Potter if you actually give a shit, or you're 6 years old and you haven't read Harry Potter yet. But at the end, after Harry has died, quote unquote, and he's seeing Dumbledore in that purgatory kind of place that he's in.
Yeah.
And he says to Dumbledore, is this all happening in my head?
Of course it is.
And he goes, of course it's happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth would that mean that it's not real?
Yep.
And you're just like, oh, in the heart. Yeah. And it's like,
yes.
It's like you get that there's obviously things that are, quote, in your head that aren't real, quote unquote. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, that's part of that philosophical discussion of real. It's like, listen, Superman is not a real person, right? But
right.
If you're someone who, for example, draws inspiration from stories of Superman, doesn't that make him a little bit real? Because again, in some sense, he is real. He's a real character. He's a real person. He might not be a real person in the you perspective, as in he's walked on this plane of existence, quote unquote, as a physical body, but he is real, as in he exists. Yeah. So again, getting that whole brain hurty conversation.
Right. Yeah, but it's still, I think
idea.
that most people would agree that just like this, just when you're high on whatever, let's just say you go into space or whatever drug, and you're like zoned out and you see colors and shapes and shit like that. Yeah, that's in your head, but like, and that's what people take drugs for, is to feel that. But like, trying to describe hallucinations or trying to describe what you're seeing is impossible. As someone who has taken hallucinogens before, there's only things that I could like.
Not you, no way.
I know, right?
Got her.
Never.
Got her.
Mm-hmm. There's like.
No
things
wonder
I've
she's
seen, though,
nuts.
There's things that I've seen that are inexplicable. Like I said, I have words to try to describe them. Like I was at a volleyball court in my school, and it looked like the waves were going back and forth like waves in the ocean, and it was just sand. And yet that's not the right way to describe it, because it's the best I can do. You're going to see, like, if people see things like that, and it's hard to explain, I can't even imagine what it's like to be, like, to have your extreme head trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Well, anyway, do we want to go to this last question, or we just want to skip it? Because we've been going for a while here.
I thought you were one of those people that said keep going. I think this isn't going to be as long as we think. Okay. Not because I think it's a bad question or anything, but I think it's a pretty straightforward deal. So the idea is, what is the best advice you've ever received? Who said it to you? Does it stick with you? And did you take the advice? So I will volunteer myself for the first answer and say, okay. I can't ever really remember anything that I've been, quote, like, told by, like obviously I've been told plenty of stuff by my parents. There's nothing that, like, I've never been like, oh yeah, this is like the most important thing, right?
Right.
But something that I do remember hearing, and it's been forever ago, and I've heard it several times, obviously, throughout my life. But one of the few bits of advice that I've always held with high importance, with very high importance, is this idea of is to judge people by what they do or how they treat those that can do nothing for them.
Yeah.
And that's
Service
something...
people.
Well, and like I said, that technically doesn't fit the criteria, because again, this is judge people by how they treat those that can do nothing for them. Right. So, service person can do stuff for you. So that doesn't fit. This is more an idea of, like, a homeless person. Or someone who, again, can do nothing for you back. It's basically a measure of how does someone treat someone that they can't get a benefit from,
right.
Because, like, obviously, so many things in life, obviously, are a plus-minus kind of game. And most of the things we do are going to be for a plus, right? We want to gain something from them. We don't work a job because we like the job, usually. Well, very few of us get to work jobs that we really like, and would do for free. Most of us do jobs to get paid. That is the plus.
Yes.
To either get but that's not the only plus. We want experience. We want friendship, amongst people in our communities. There's a lot of reasons you would work, but there's always reasons. And I've always found it a big deal to see how someone treats someone that can't give them something, you know? And I think it's very telling of a person. You know, it's not to say that if you don't give a homeless person money that, like, you're evil.
Right.
It's just a way of saying, like, you know, if you had $1 and you didn't need anything to do with it, you know, and you just gave it to someone who needed it, I think that says more about you as a person, because, you know, that's someone who can do nothing for you. They can't do anything except express gratitude.
Yeah.
You know, even by that definition, maybe they don't qualify because they give you gratitude. But you know what I think you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, I waited tables. I know exactly what you mean. Like it's a rule. I've always lived by that, and that's exactly what I agree with it so much. It's like you can tell a lot. This is especially important on a date. Whenever I look for this, how they treat service people, like service folks, like waiting tables, if they tip. That's another big thing. Like it's such a turnoff if I see they tip like 10% or some shit like that. Not just because I waited tables, but I'm like, they're doing something.
I think we're on a similar beat, but I think we're a little different. But I agree with yours, though. DoorDash,
too. There's people who like, oh, I'm not going to give them a tip. What? I'm like, that's the only way I ever took any, you know, like, it's, what is it called? We're not employees necessarily of, like, things like DoorDash. What's the fucking word? God damn it. We're licensed, like, we're
You're contractors.
Yes, thank you. A contractor. Oh my God, that's been happening to me so much lately where I can't.
You're not employed. You are contractors.
Thank you. Yes. So that means we can deny every single job we don't want. So it pop up on the screen.
Sure.
Not enough money. No. So only the people who tip, and you don't see a tip. It's just the amount of money you get for the ride. If you don't tip, it's usually like $2, $3, $4 to go drive all the way around. At least bare minimum, each order takes half an hour, and that's if it goes fast and smoothly.
Sure.
So that means like that person's making $8 an hour. Let's just say if it's $4, no, that when you have to pay for gas and upkeep of your car, it doesn't balance out. So
I think we're in the same family of philosophies. I think we're saying two different things a little bit, but I agree with yours too, which is you should also. I think there is a lot to say about how people treat service people, which is definitely a good thing. It's
related,
to also,
but it's not quite the same. So that's what I mean. That's why I'm getting.
It's similar. Yeah.
Yes. Like if you're just, I think it's just the rule is just be kind to everyone, dude. Everyone's going through their own shit. Everyone's got like you know shit on their mind. Just be nice. Like it doesn't cost you anything. I know that's a typical cliche, but it's like it really doesn't. And what's great about it is that you feel good about yourself afterwards. So
I think I've only ever once shit somebody's tip once in my life. And it was horrendous service. And I don't think she deserved the nickel that we left for her. And I say we because everybody left her a nickel.
Yeah, because she was probably rude as fuck, I guess.
She was horrendous. And she had no reason to be. It was a waitress, young girl. Well, we were young too. We were in college. I was out with my first girlfriend, my college girlfriend, not my first serious girlfriend, but like my first girlfriend. Right. I was out with her friend, who's a cunt, and her boyfriend. And I remember because she was so sweet and her friend was just... I have a feeling, and this is me totally passing judgment, and you can think little of me if you want for this, but her friend totally kept her around because she thought that she was uglier than her. 100%.
Yeah.
I didn't like her friend at all. Thankfully, I wasn't going out with her. So, but she wasn't rude either. We went to a really, a restaurant that obviously turned out to be really shitty, but it was also empty. It was a very dead night. There's like nobody in there. And this fucking bitch was like sighing at us and like, and it's like, we kind of all looked at her and I was like, did she just like huff and puff? And me
she's
and
mad that we're here.
Me and the other guy, I kind of joked. I was like, do you see anybody else here? Like, I don't know, maybe she's having a bad night, but like nobody's here. She's got to be broke right now. She's got to have no money in her pocket. Cause and it was totally her fault too. 100%. Because the guy ordered like a broccoli and cheddar soup. I remember this. He ordered broccoli and cheddar soup. And she brought him French onion soup. Okay? Pretty obvious that it's the wrong one. And he was very nice to her. He said, "Oh no, I'm sorry. I said broccoli cheddar. I wanted a broccoli cheddar soup." And she goes, oh, and then walks away with. I was like,
Dude.
She was mad at you. And then she came back, Emma, I'm so fucking serious. She came back with a second cup of French onion soup.
What the
And he
fuck?
looked at her, and he's like, I'm sorry, but no. He's like, no, I said broccoli, and he goes, do you guys not have it? And then she walks away, doesn't take the soup, and then comes back and goes, yeah, we don't have it. And it was like,
what the fuck?
And like, I'm sitting there like, this is crazy. And
That's
she
so
was like
ridiculous.
mad. And it's like, he 100% swore on my life he was being super nice. And I was like, I don't know, I don't know. Again, I could only, but, and it wasn't the only thing. I can remember a couple other things kind of vaguely because it was 100 years ago and I'm old now and can't remember these things.
Right.
But, but yeah, it's the only time I've ever stiffed somebody on a tip. And it was just like, I'm not going to lie to you. If you do that, I am so not going to tip you. I don't care about this whole like, well, there's service. Yeah, you know what? Then you should still fight a little bit for the tip. Because as long as you just provide decent service, I'm going to give you at least 15%.
Right.
But
like if
especially in a restaurant,
you don't provide service at all, or just really shitty service,
And if you're a little bit of an asshole, yeah. It's like, if you're a little bit of an asshole, I'm not going to lie, I'm probably still going to leave you 15, but depending on like how you do it, it might drop, because again, listen, I'm not forcing you to work here, that's a whole other problem, that servers can be paid $2 an hour or whatever insane rate it is. It's like, listen, I know tons of people, my dad's asshole ex-girlfriend is a waitress, and somehow she brings in hundreds of dollars a night, and she is a cunt, and I don't know how she makes any kind of connection with people, because she is one of the worst people I've ever met in my life. And that witch walks out of like 3 different restaurants that she works for with wads, so she can at least fake it and like make the money,
Is this the one that was living with you or what?
Yes. But it's like if that fucking psycho can walk out with that kind of money, you can at least fake it a little bit. I'm sorry. You can at least fake it a little bit. You don't have to like the job. And we could probably bond over that and just be like, listen, I totally get it. You don't want to be here. Listen, can you just bring me a little bit extra sauce? It's just not a lot on this. Can you just, please, not to bug you? Yeah, no problem. Not a big deal. I can go do that.
That sounds like
coming back and checking
response.
and just it's like, I'm not sitting there going, well, my steak was a little warm. Your tip is looking a little weak now. Okay, yeah. Now that's going to get rubbed on my balls. And it's going to get dropped back on your plate. But but I'm taking up all your time. I know you kind of gave some advice yourself with the service employee thing, but go ahead.
No, I love it. That's yeah. That made me laugh. Rub it all over my balls. The way you said it made me laugh.
Actually, I lied. There was one other time I shorted somebody on a tip that I just remembered, but I swear I think it's the only other time, and it was really fucking weird. But I won't take long. I'll just say that basically, when it came time for the tip, she sat there and stared at us.
Wow. Okay, that's fucking.
She was
weird.
super absent. We had a hard time keeping up with her because we didn't know where she was, and oh boy. Okay, I guess I'll be a racist. So it was Halloween, and she was wearing a full Muslim garb. And I don't know. I still don't know to this day if she was just Muslim or if she was wearing that intentionally.
I think it's probably intentional.
I swear I don't. Yeah, but I was gonna say this was also like about 10, 12 years ago.
I've never seen somebody who had to wear that.
I can't see that going over well. Maybe 10 years ago it would have. Definitely not now as a costume. But
no shit.
So, and I only mentioned
back then either.
I only mentioned. Yeah, I only mentioned that because it made it hard for us to get a hold of her because everybody's in costume. It was literally Halloween morning, so the whole room of IHOP is filled with people who are working there that got to wear their costumes, which is fine. That's great. They get to wear costumes. Whatever. It's Halloween. Let the employees fucking do something that makes them smile. Right. And it's like, you can't just stand up and say, hey, can you find the Muslim? Because, she literally disappeared into the walls. It's like, I don't know where she is. Like, we waited like 30 minutes in between like getting the menus and ordering. And it was busy, but it wasn't busy enough that she could vanish into Narnia, which is where she went. I have no idea. I think she took her lunch because I was like, I have no idea where she is. But anyway, service was fine when she was there, but she was a ghost. And we were there for like 2 hours. This is IHOP, you know? And it's like, this is like a long time in between. Like, we had to ask another waitress for drinks after ours finished. And I was like, we just want another round of reloaded drinks. Can we just get another reload? And then she brought them over, not our actual waitress. But then when it came time for the tip, I took the sheet from her because I was paying for the breakfast. And I stopped and I looked up and I was like, I'm sorry, did you need something? And she goes, oh, well, sometimes people, they take the tip slip away, and I just want to make sure it doesn't get... I was like, can you please leave?
Yeah, right.
And she walked away. But it was like, how weird. It's like, is this your first job? Like,
that's really
no, you
weird.
don't stand there and stare at somebody. It's like, I'm trying to write the tip out here. And I'm pretty sure we still tipped her like 15%. I'm probably lying about stiffing her on it.
Yeah.
But like, it was just one of those things where it's like,
weird experience.
Every second you're standing in front of me, I'm seeing 10% in my head. Just please walk away. You're weirding me out. And it's like, not only was it taking forever to just get you over here, but like, go away.
Right.
I'm sorry. But anyway,
no, you're good.
Your turn.
Okay.
We got some time left. Go ahead.
Okay. So I have it was something my grandmother said, and to be fair, my grandmother's a cunt of the highest order.
You stole that from me.
I did a little bit because I was going, what a coincidence.
That's my word. You can't say that. That's my word.
This, when I just, without going further into it, she, in the biggest way, betrayed me and was just awful. She's no longer in my life. However, she did raise me, and like, she wasn't always awful. Well, she was also. I've heard enough stories at this point that that's what that was. That I was a little kid and I didn't understand it, so my memory's not going to provide her an accurate picture of who she is. But she was the one who helped me start writing and helped me, all my artistic endeavors. She kind of planted the seed for, so I'll give her that. But one time she was talking to me, and I remember the car ride. I was in the back seat. I don't remember where we were going. But she said something to me about, she was telling me a story, but the kind of the end result of what she was saying was, it's okay if you can't dance, but don't ever date a man who won't dance. And I loved that. It stuck in my brain like forever, because it, like, the way that the analogies that applies to is just somebody who doesn't take themselves so seriously that they like, they'll get up and dance, and like, it doesn't matter if they don't like dancing or if they don't, they can't dance, just that they will. Like, just try, like, one time. Because I'm a girl who wants to dance, and that's what a guy's supposed to do. But it's also, I think, just in analogy of spirit. And, like, the way that, like, I took that to heart. I don't know if it makes any sense like that. But, like, it's just someone who's free-spirited and can just be, just have fun and forget themselves for a little while. Is somebody that's important, like, from the get-go.
Someone that can be goofy.
Yes, somebody who don't take life so seriously that, like, if I run at a flock of seagulls going caw, like, you're not gonna be like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. You're gonna laugh at least, if not run behind me.
I mean, they could still be embarrassed and just be like, honey, could you have at least waited till we got home?
No.
There was a group of children in front of those seagulls, and they just shit all over those children because you scared them away.
Oh, no, I would, that is my entire personality, though. Like, if that girl's not for you, then you don't need to be involved with me, okay? But anyway, I just love that idea of that and how that applies to other parts of my life, just people in general, and just, I love that. There's another quote that I also had kept in mind, which was from a professor when I was in college. I used to have way worse panic attacks than I have now. Like, now it's not even a thing, basically. Well, it is still sometimes, but it's not like the way it used to be. And my teacher told me at one point, his name was Steve Jones, and he passed away at this point, but he said, you can either panic, calm down, have to talk yourself through that, get over it, and then do it, or you can just skip all that and just do it. But either way, it has to get done. And it was just the final part of that. It's got to get done either way. And I'm like, you're right. I can panic about this later when I could just. That's a good point. And I took it as that at first, because I could just compartmentalize enough to make it so like, okay, let me just do this and like just not think about it, and then I'm gonna panic about what I did later because I just did it on a whim, like oh I did horribly. My life is over. All that I can save that, but the point though is still it applies today. Like just. It's not worth wasting time freaking out about, and like sometimes you don't have a choice, and I get that. I have, as somebody with his panic attacks, I get it. I get it. So the problem is though that it's not something that some people can just do, but for me personally, it was like something all of a sudden I went click, you're right, and it resonated for me because like it's like all I could think was like I'm wasting time. And that for some reason helped me quell the panic, and that helps with me for a lot of times. It's just more or so the last part of either way you can panic and then move on and then do it, or you can just do it, and either way it's got to get done. So that's helped me kind of try to be a mantra to my especially for my ADHD. I am fatally ADHD. I swear to God, like it's like stage 4 cancer level of ADHD. And I say that like, it's like a contest. You're like, oh no, I go through this, and they explain their symptoms. Like, I'm not trying to say I'm more ADHD than anyone. The problem is like,
it's exactly what she's saying.
Yeah, it's not a competition. Just, I would rather lose it. Please, somebody take the trophy away from me because I don't want it. Anyway, those were my. No, things.
I do like the sentiment though, because again, it's one of those things where it's like. Some people, maybe you do need or want someone, who's serious, or someone who, is more of a stiff personality. Maybe that's like a rigidity that you want. But like at the same time, it is one of those things where it's like, if the person is not willing to go outside of their comfort zone, which I think is another thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because for example, they could be someone who dances all the time. Mm-hmm. So it might not be too difficult for them. But as soon as you tell them to do something that maybe isn't dancing and they don't want to do it, it's the same sentiment. They're not willing to do something that isn't what they just want to do all the time. It's like, what if you said, okay, well, I'd really like to just kind of like, go to a movie, something nice and quiet. I'm a really big film fan. I want to go, watch a film or watch a play or something like that.
Right.
And they're, a cheating bitch who got drunk and cheated on their boyfriend. No, I was kidding. But if they're a person who, for example, always just wants to dance and they won't do that, then it's the same sentiment. It's like, don't, I think that's where, at least for me, that's where I interpret it, is that if they can't step outside of their comfort zone, if they're not willing to, quote, like embarrass themselves or like try something new is another perspective of it. If they're not willing to try something new, then like, that person's probably not going to be super interesting. It's like that's someone who, but they could be a fit for you, but you just have to ask yourself, what do you want? And I think that's a good perspective for a lot of people, is that you need someone who is willing,
your boundaries are going to match,
who is willing to expand their boundaries, but so are you. It's like you can't just expect one person to do all the, to quote the philosopher Bill Burr, make sure you pick up your end of the couch too.
That's a good way to put it.
It's one of those things where it's like, listen, if you want, for example, like, it would be like the idea of like, oh, well, you stopped going to the gym, you should go back to the gym. And it's like, okay, come with me. And they go, no.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, see you later. I'm going to go date other people. It's like, wait, what? And it's like, no, you can't just like tell them to like, it's like, no, you should be willing to engage in it too.
Yeah.
It's like, you should be willing to do the same thing. But then again, that's, what we're dealing with general relationship talk, is not only accommodating the other person when necessary, but also meeting them on even ground and realizing that there are things that you should do for them that maybe you don't want to do because you love them, or because you want to show them you love them, and it's like, you shouldn't have to sacrifice things you love. Never. You shouldn't have to sacrifice things you love. Sometimes you might, for example, if you're a jerk who's cheating on her boyfriend and really likes getting drunk, maybe you should give up drinking for a little while because it clearly doesn't work too well for you.
Yeah, exactly. You need to reassess.
Maybe, I'm just picking on the stupid young child, but
I gotta talk to you.
So,
remind me later when we get off the podcast. I gotta show you something later. This screen cap of a text that I got. Oh my god!
I don't want to see another picture of your balls.
You'll like it because I can't wait to see you go off a little bit about it because I know you're going to.
It's a picture of your balls. I knew it.
It is, except this time it's from a different angle.
This is why we do the podcast, so I only have to talk to her and not interact with her physical media that gets sent to me.
That's right. Just dicks all day.
Well, I mean, explains this podcast episode so far. It may as well be sponsored by Adam and Eve the way it's going.
As you say, I think we just talked about sex and relationships the entire fucking episode. No, we didn't talk about movies at all.
And total existential breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't talk about movies at all. Gold star for us.
That's okay. We talk about movies all the time. Like right now, Curse Broken.
Sort of.
Your fault.
This doesn't count as talking about movies. We're talking about movies.
Your fault.
And about when we talk about movies.
Your fault.
No, okay. Anyway, we're going to wrap this up.
Your fault.
Thank you guys. Thanks for everyone who listens, all three of you. I love you.
There's at least 4 of them, I think.
Oh, excuse me. 4. Oh my god.
Including all of Emma's friends who are apparently going to hate her for having the opinions that she had.
Anniversary. Yeah, oh my god. I don't think any of my female friends are going to listen to my podcast. All of my friends that are listening to this right now are all men, gloriously. Because I think there's a lot of things that I say.
Oh, you're one of those chicks. I get it.
I think there's a lot. Yeah, I
just have a lot of guy friends. Women are bitches.
I'm not like other girls.
I'm not like other girls. I just like guys who don't have any drama and.
Have you seen 6'5", blue eyes? Trust fund.
Okay. Boom, 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 boom.
Have you seen the remixes to that shit? Yes.
Yeah.
Trust fund. 6'5".
I like the
blue eyes.
My favorite thing about that is that people have done the math and have come to the conclusion that man doesn't exist. Or if he does exist, there's like 2 of him statistically.
Yeah.
That it's like such a stretch.
It really is. I fucking love all the fucking remixes of it, dude. I've been listening to
it was obviously a bit, but it was pretty funny to see people actually do the math and just be like, she wants a guy that's not real.
Aliens.
It's like, yeah, so do you, buddy.
Have you seen this? Have you seen this dude like with the mustache? Aliens ain't shit. I could probably beat them up. If an alien came at me, no, I would not give a fuck. Aliens get no karate. No karate's made on Earth. I also don't know karate, but I think that I could learn. Like, I have those. Every single one of his videos, I am in love with and completely memorized.
Memorized? Is that like when your tits stand at attention?
They're memorized.
Is that what it means when the nipples are so hard you can see them through the shirt? Memorized?
Yes.
Good. I heard memorized. I thought memories, and I was like, okay,
Memories.
This is a titty joke. This is a titty joke.
I have lots of titty jokes because of the last year. I gotta tell you about it later. I think I told you about it before.
I like how
one
she's
of my
like,
medications
she's like, I have lots of titty related stories to tell you off the podcast.
I do though. My medication, like recently, I had a medication that got changed because it made me have a side effect that involves my boobs, and I'm just gonna say
you were squirting everywhere, and you were like, I have to stop this.
No, basically, what was happening, I was leaking milk. Like what happened was the thing is,
and that's where the new subscribers are going to come from. Listen to this podcast if you want to hear about breast milk.
Oh my god. It's not estrogen, it was I pee because of the pee. Fucking it. It's the hormone that it comes out a lot when you're pregnant.
Isn't it like progesterone or something
That's
like
it,
that?
progesterone. Yes.
It's similar to estrogen. I'm actually pretty sure it actually is like.
Yes.
I think it is a form.
It skyrocketed that. I went to the OBGYN a while back and because I was like, I'm not having
progesterone.
Yeah. And basically my body was just having just way too much of it and was doing a bunch of other shit, but that was the one that was really hilarious. Was like I was like occasionally leaking a lot of milk from my boobs. Like at one point it was I have a memory of it being really bad. But I had a memory.
Memory. Damn it!
I was having to change my shirt like literally 3 times a day, and they took me off. It's not a problem anymore. But I was just like, medicine is fucking weird.
I mean, a lot of guys go through that too, but it's usually around 13 when it just starts leaking in their pants everywhere, and then they have to find a way to deal with it.
Yeah. Like that?
You know,
is that what it's
different
like?
body part, but...
Is that really what it's like?
I'm not going to lie to you. I remember hearing all these things about, like, when you're going through puberty, you're going to have, like, wet dreams, and I was legitimately concerned about that. I don't think I've ever had one of those in my life. And I was like, I thought this was going to be a real concern of mine. This is like cursive writing.
Like quicksand.
I thought this was...
Like someone being afraid.
I was going to say, it's like cursive writing or quicksand. I thought this was going to be part of my life, and it's just not.
Exactly.
or the ability to do math. It turns out I don't need to do that either.
Well, we're going to wrap things up here. Come on.
Wrap it up before all the milk starts leaking out.
Exactly. Oh, see, I knew I should. And I was debating telling you that. I didn't know, like, yeah, of course. I shouldn't.
I held off the whole episode from making any more comments about that giant incel rant you went on before we had to delete the previous episode.
Oh yeah.
Emma was worried about the social pushback that she was going to get because she couldn't keep her thoughts straight, and she ended up sounding like incel Hitler and was like, I guess we're going to re-record it.
not entirely, but yeah, like it was. I know what my point was. I literally explained it earlier, like what I was where I was going, but because I'm so ADHD, I never got to the point. So it sounded like I was just saying some stupid shit, like that a lot of like anti-feminist, like some like pro-lifers are.
In the words of John Cena,
I got possessed by a pro-lifer for like 5 minutes. I was really weird.
In the words of John Cena, you like a broken pencil, you missing the point.
All right. We're going to say bye. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, bye-bye. We're going to see you next
episode. Get the fuck out of here and stop listening. Go watch, like, some ASMR shit or something on YouTube. There's probably porn on YouTube somewhere. Go find it and tell us about it.
Okay, and see.